January 19, 1991, afternoon. 72 F-16 Fighting Falcons launch from 4 different air bases across Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar. Each aircraft carries 2 2,000-pound Mark 84 bombs. Along with them, 8 F-15 Eagles for air cover, 8 F-4G Wild Weasels for air defense suppression, 2 EF-111 Ravens for electronic jamming, KC-135 tankers for refueling. Their target, downtown Baghdad, the Tuwaitha Nuclear Research Center, and multiple military installations in the most heavily defended city in Iraq. Thousands of anti-aircraft guns, hundreds of surface-to-air missile sites, MiG fighters on alert at nearby air bases, the same air defenses that had been chewing up coalition aircraft for 3 days. This is Package Q, the largest F-16 strike in military history, the largest single air strike of the Gulf War, and a mission that would prove something crucial. There are limits to what conventional aircraft can accomplish against a prepared enemy, even when you throw everything you have at them. This is the story of the mission that was supposed to break Baghdad's defenses, the coordination nightmare that almost fell apart before it started, the 2 pilots shot down over the capital, and why the Air Force decided that after Package Q, only stealth aircraft would strike downtown Baghdad. By January 19, 1991, the air war over Iraq was going exceptionally well for the coalition. 3 days of round-the-clock strikes had destroyed Iraqi early warning radars, command centers, and airfields. F-117 stealth fighters were hitting strategic targets in Baghdad with impunity. Iraqi aircraft were refusing to engage. Coalition forces effectively owned the skies. But Baghdad itself remained a fortress. The Iraqi capital was protected by a Soviet-designed integrated air defense system, overlapping fields of anti-aircraft artillery and surface-to-air missiles, AAA guns from World War II, modern SAMs with radar guidance, thousands of weapons all concentrated around the city. In the war's opening hours, only F-117s had ventured downtown, stealth aircraft that Iraqi radars couldn't detect. But the F-117 fleet was small, only 42 aircraft deployed for Desert Storm, and there were hundreds of targets across Iraq that needed to be hit. If the coalition was going to win this war quickly, conventional aircraft would need to strike Baghdad in force, prove that Iraqi air defenses could be overwhelmed. That's where Package Q came in. The plan was ambitious. 72 F-16s, the largest single employment of F-16s in combat history, would strike multiple targets across Baghdad simultaneously. The sheer number of aircraft would saturate Iraqi defenses. Wild Weasels would suppress SAM sites. Electronic warfare aircraft would jam radars. F-15s would protect against Iraqi fighters. It was the air power equivalent of shock and awe. And if it worked, it would open Baghdad to conventional strikes for the rest of the war. There was just one problem: coordinating 72 F-16s, 8 F-15s, 8 F-4GS, 2 EF-111s, and multiple tankers, all launching from 4 different bases, rendezvousing over Saudi Arabia, refueling in midair, and arriving over Baghdad at precisely the same moment, was one of the most complex air operations ever attempted. And almost nothing went according to plan. The strike force consisted of 2 main groups: 56 F-16s from the 388th Tactical Fighter Wing based at Al-Minhad in the United Arab Emirates, 16 F-16s from the 401st Tactical Fighter Wing based at Doha, Qatar. The 401st included the 614th Tactical Fighter Squadron, the Lucky Devils, who would suffer both losses during the mission. Each F-16 carried 2 Mark 84 bombs, 4,000 pounds of ordnance, plus 2 external fuel tanks, 2 AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles for self-defense, 90 bundles of chaff, and 15 flares. The aircraft were loaded so heavily that pilots worried about whether they could maintain formation during the long flight to Baghdad. Supporting them were F-4G Wild Weasels armed with AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles. Their job: suppress Iraqi SAM sites by destroying their radars. But here's the problem. The F-4Gs had to fly from bases in Saudi Arabia, much farther from Baghdad than the F-16 bases. They burned fuel at a higher rate than F-16s. To make the round trip, each Wild Weasel could only carry 2 HARMs. Not 8, not 6, 2. That meant the Wild Weasels couldn't engage every SAM site threatening the strike package. They'd have to prioritize, hoping they picked the right targets. The plan called for all aircraft to launch at staggered times, rendezvous over Saudi Arabia near the Iraqi border, refuel from KC-135 tankers, and then proceed as one massive formation into Iraq. The Air Tasking Order, the formal mission briefing, arrived so late that some pilots completing exhausting missions on January 18th received their Package Q orders after they'd already landed. They had hours to plan, brief, rest, and launch again. And then the complications began. The tanker rendezvous went wrong almost immediately. Bad weather over Saudi Arabia scattered the tanker tracks. The tankers approached the release point too early and had to throttle back to minimum speed to stay on schedule. That created a nightmare for the heavily loaded F-16s trying to refuel behind them. F-16s have a fairly narrow speed envelope when carrying external fuel tanks and heavy bomb loads. Too slow, and they stall. Too fast, and they burn through fuel. The tankers were flying so slowly that F-16s were on the edge of stalling out just to stay in formation. Some pilots had to light afterburners, massively increasing fuel consumption, just to stay airborne long enough to plug into the tanker boom. 4 F-16s coming off the last tanker fell so far behind that the mission commander ordered them to return to base. They couldn't make up the time and still have enough fuel for the mission. So Package Q launched with 68 F-16s instead of 72. And some of those that did make it to the tanker had burned so much fuel that their combat time over Baghdad would be severely limited. After refueling, the massive formation turned north toward Baghdad. Over 100 aircraft flying in coordinated groups, the largest air strike package of the war, and every Iraqi radar operator in the country could see them coming. As the strike package approached Baghdad, Iraqi air defenses opened up. AAA fire filled the sky. SAMs launched from sites across the city. MiG-29s scrambled from nearby air bases, though F-15 escorts intercepted them before they could threaten the strike package. The Wild Weasels engaged SAM sites with HARMs. But here's the critical problem. Because of fuel limitations, not all the Wild Weasels made it all the way to Baghdad. Some had to turn back early. Others fired their 2 missiles and then had no choice but to leave. They were defenseless without weapons and low on fuel. That meant significant portions of the strike package were attacking Baghdad without adequate air defense suppression. The Wild Weasels that did make it to Baghdad were overwhelmed. With only 2 missiles each, they could only engage a fraction of the SAM sites actively shooting at the F-16s. Communication became a nightmare. The mission commander, a single pilot trying to fly his own F-16 while coordinating the entire package, estimated he was receiving 80% of all radio calls from the strike force. An impossible workload, pilots calling out SAM launches, Wild Weasels reporting targets, flight leads coordinating their sections, all on the same frequency, all at the same time. Coordination broke down. Some flights attacked their assigned targets. Others couldn't find their targets in the chaos and switched to secondary objectives. The formation that had launched as a synchronized air ballet was now dozens of individual flights fighting their way through one of the most intense air defense environments on the planet. And then the losses started. Captain Jeffrey Tice was a pilot with the 614th Tactical Fighter Squadron, the Lucky Devils, flying out of Doha, Qatar. He was on his bomb run when an Iraqi SAM locked onto his F-16. Tice never saw the missile coming. The explosion tore through his aircraft. He ejected, parachuted into Baghdad. Iraqi forces captured him within minutes. He would spend the next month as a prisoner of war. Captain Harry Mike Roberts, also from the 614th, was hit moments later. Sources vary on whether it was a SAM or anti-aircraft artillery fire. Either way, his F-16 went down. Roberts ejected and was also captured. 2 F-16s lost. 2 pilots prisoners of war from the same squadron on the same mission. Back at Doha, someone painted a sign over the door leading out of the 614th Operations Building. "God bless Tico and Mr." referring to Tice and Roberts by their nicknames. For the rest of Desert Storm, every pilot leaving on a mission reached up and slapped those words. "My guys didn't back up 1 inch," said then-Lieutenant Colonel Bruce Wright, the squadron commander. Years later, as a retired lieutenant general, Wright still remembered the determination his pilots showed after losing 2 of their own. Meanwhile, over Baghdad, Captain Emmett Tullia was fighting for his life. Tullia was part of Package Q attacking targets in downtown Baghdad. As he rolled in on his bomb run, Iraqi SAM operators locked onto his F-16. He saw the first missile launch, then the second, then a third. Tullia pulled into a hard turn, dumping chaff and flares. The first missile missed. The second missile missed. He rolled inverted, pulled through, lit afterburner. A fourth missile launched. He broke hard left, chaff streaming behind him. Miss. A fifth missile. A sixth missile. Iraqi gunners were throwing everything they had at him. Tullia was pulling 9G turns, his F-16 at the absolute edge of its performance envelope. His head-up display video, later used as a training tool at fighter pilot schools, shows missile after missile streaking past his canopy. He dodged 6 SAMs in less than 5 minutes, made it out of Iraqi airspace, landed safely. But Tullia's survival highlighted the problem with Package Q. Iraqi air defenses weren't suppressed. They were fully operational, and they were engaging coalition aircraft with near impunity. The strike package hit multiple targets across Baghdad: government buildings, the oil refinery, military installations. The Tuwaitha Nuclear Research Center, the main objective, was struck but only slightly damaged. F-117s would have to return days later to finish the job. The Gulf War Air Power Survey, a comprehensive post-war analysis, concluded that Package Q's overall results were unsatisfactory. The mission had achieved some objectives, but at a cost that wasn't acceptable. 2 F-16s lost, multiple aircraft damaged by SAM fragments and AAA targets incompletely destroyed, and a hard lesson learned: massed conventional strikes against Baghdad's air defenses were too dangerous. After Package Q, Air Force commanders made a critical decision: no more large conventional strikes downtown. From that point forward, only stealth aircraft, F-117s and later F-111FS with precision-guided munitions, would attack targets in Baghdad proper. Conventional aircraft would focus on targets outside the capital where air defenses were lighter. Let the stealth platforms handle the heavily defended areas. Package Q proved that even the largest airstrike in history couldn't overwhelm a prepared, Soviet-style integrated air defense system, at least not without suffering unacceptable losses. So was Package Q a failure? Not entirely. The mission accomplished several objectives. It destroyed or damaged multiple military targets. It forced Iraqi air defenses to reveal themselves, providing intelligence on SAM locations for future strikes. It demonstrated coalition air power could penetrate Baghdad's defenses. But more importantly, Package Q taught the Air Force crucial lessons about modern air warfare. First, coordination at that scale is extraordinarily difficult. Even with advanced communications, GPS navigation, and detailed planning. Getting over 100 aircraft from multiple bases to converge on one target at the same time is a logistical nightmare. Small problems, tanker timing, fuel consumption, radio congestion, cascade into larger issues that degrade mission effectiveness. Second, air defense suppression is absolutely critical. Wild weasels can't do their job if they're limited to 2 missiles each because of fuel constraints. Subsequent missions allocated more resources to SEAD, ensuring that when strike aircraft attacked, SAM sites had already been neutralized. Third, mass doesn't always equal success. 72 F-16s sounds overwhelming, but against a prepared enemy with thousands of weapons, numbers alone aren't enough. You need the right aircraft, the right weapons, and the right tactics. After Package Q, the Air Force shifted toward precision strikes with fewer aircraft rather than mass attacks. And fourth, stealth matters. F-117s were striking Baghdad every night with near impunity. Package Q lost 2 F-16s in one mission. The lesson was clear. Invest in stealth. Invest in precision. Don't send conventional aircraft into the most heavily defended airspace unless absolutely necessary. Captain Jeffrey Tice and Captain Mike Roberts spent the remainder of the war as prisoners in Baghdad. Iraqi forces paraded captured coalition pilots on television, violating the Geneva Conventions. Both were beaten, interrogated, used for propaganda. They were released on March 4, 1991, 6 days after the ceasefire. Both returned to active duty. Roberts retired as a lieutenant colonel. Tice rose to the rank of colonel and commanded the 57th Wing at Nellis Air Force Base. The sign over the 614th Operations door, "God bless Tico and Mr.," remained there for the rest of Desert Storm. A reminder that even on the most challenging missions, you don't abandon your brothers. You remember them, you honor them, and you keep flying. Package Q remains the largest operational F-16 mission in history. Over 3 decades later, no mission has matched its scale, and that's partly by design. Modern air warfare has moved away from mass strikes toward precision. Stealth aircraft, long-range cruise missiles, drones, small numbers of highly capable platforms striking with surgical accuracy. But Package Q represents a moment in military history when the Air Force tried to use overwhelming numbers to break a prepared enemy, and learned that sometimes bigger isn't better. Sometimes smarter wins. 72 F-16s, over 100 aircraft total, the largest air strike of Dissay.